call to order the workshop of February 16, 2021. First, road construction report with Dan. Dan, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. So I'm here tonight to give you a brief overview of this upcoming season's construction projects, the funding associated with those, and what you can expect. Start by giving you a brief overview of the selection process that we go through to determine which roads are being reconstructed, rehabbed, or just paved. The city has we have a pavement condition analysis. It's an active program. Every road is graded per segment, so intersection to intersection. The pavement is looked at, determined what type of cracking exists, what type of deformities, et cetera, and it's graded. Every road segment in the city has this done to it. It's an active program, so it's updated every year. We take those scores, we look at traffic volumes, determine, say a road scores poorly, but it only has 2 cars a day on it. It's pretty hard to justify spending $1 million to rebuild that road for 2 cars versus a road that scores almost as bad but has 10,000 cars a day. So that's one of the factors we look at when determining. And then we also look at available funding sources. So besides the city's capital improvement program, 100% funding, the state has a municipal partnership initiative, which is a 50-50 program where the state, it used to be $500,000 match. They've increased that for next year to $650,000 match due to the popularity of the program. The state has, as long as you agree to conform with state construction standards, there's very little additional paperwork associated with that program, so it's very, very attractive. And then there's also the ATRC funding process where we go through, where you get federal transportation dollars, and that's an 80-10-10, where federal government pays 80%, state 10%, and the city is 10%. So, and those can only be done on obviously federal roads, state highways, those sort of things. And then we also look at upcoming projects. So, for example, if a large industrial project is taking place or the water district, we coordinate with the water district and the sewer district to determine which lines they would like to replace, which lines they need to replace, and if that coincides with our construction, it benefits them and it benefits us in that we'll rip up the road, they might hire our contractor, or they'll go in the year before and do it, but it allows us to only go in and tear up the road once, versus us going in, rebuilding the road, and 5 years later they go in to replace all the lines. No one wants to do that. Breaks my heart when you see the amount of money it costs to do these things for someone to come in after the fact and replace a water line or move a gas line or things like that. And we also look at TIF funding. So that's become more prevalent. I forgot to add that here. In the past, I'd say 2 years. So the planning office or economic development office, the office downstairs, has allowed us to coordinate those projects where they're actually contributing TIF dollars towards construction projects, which is great. So you'll see the Turner Street sidewalk, which was completed last year, that was done with TIF funding. There's a section of Stetson Road was rebuilt last year, that was done with TIF funding. Not 100%, but it's a great contribution. Merrill Road is actually going to be funded partially by TIF funding, we hope. So it's very advantageous. So this coming season, for reclamation, what a reclamation is where we take a big, for lack of a better term, rototiller to the road. It grinds up the pavement, the gravels below it, mixes them all up, creates a good base, and then we can add gravel to that. We could pave over it, depends on the consistency and the type of material that's there. Testing is done beforehand to determine what process we need to do, but then the road is repaved and you're good to go. Most of the time these projects are done outside of the city center. There's no water, there's no sewer, typically there's no sidewalks, there's mostly just drainage in these areas. So next year, we're looking to do Old Danville Road from Moose Brook Road down to the town line. If anyone drives that right now is a great time to experience that if you're wondering what that's like. And Johnson Road, which is from the town line in 1,700 feet. Resurfacing, this is strict overlays. So what will happen is we'll go through and do a micro shim. It'll be, everyone will think the road is done and they'll say, you guys did a lousy job because we only put down 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch of pavement. It's basically to take out some of the abnormalities in the road and make it a more uniform surface. And then we'll go back in and put 1.5 inches of pavement over that. So next year we're doing Danville Corner Road, Beach Hill Road, and Black Cat Road. Beach Hill Road will also receive a raised crosswalk at Martindale. We've been in coordination with Martindale. It's the crossing to hole number 1, if those of you are familiar with it, to try to slow people down and to make it a much safer spot for golfers to cross. These projects are strictly CIP dollars that were allocated last year. MPI project. This is, it currently is out to bid. Right now, we have not received our bids back. This is Grace Lawn Road, the entire length. We'll be adding a sidewalk on the Walmart side. There'll be a crossing with rapid flash beacons at St. Dom's. So this will connect the sidewalk that was just built on Turner Street to the apartments, up, down, around, all the way to Mount Auburn Ave. When Mount Auburn Ave is eventually reconstructed, the sidewalk will connect from Park Avenue to the sidewalk in front of BJ's, so that entire loop will be connected and completed. This is an MPI project, so we're receiving $500,000 match from MDOT to do this project. For reconstruction, we'll be doing 3rd Street and Brook Street. This is currently in design, hopefully going out to bid next month. The estimate for this is $1.2 million. This will receive new stormwater infrastructure and sidewalks, as well as the driving surface. We are also completing the Soper's Mill Road culvert replacement. This was done with a grant from Maine Inland Fisheries. They're contributing $95,000 out of the $120,000 construction cost. The MDOT also does some work within the city outside the urban compact. They'll be doing Young's Corner Road from Lost Valley Road to Southeast 1.3. It's headed out of town. It's that loop that they do out of town. They do it, their light capital improvement program is a 7-year, they try to do it every 7 years. The state doesn't have enough money to rebuild anything. So what they do is they add 1.25 inches of pavement to these roads every 7 years. And that's the treatment. So some of these roads have a lot of pavement on them. You wouldn't guess it driving them, but there's a lot of pavement there, just not much for base material. So they're doing Young's Corner Road and also 136 to town line to the Turnpike overpass, which I believe they did it was about 7 years ago when they did both of these roads. This project is actually started. This is the Maine Academy High Elm intersections of the Minot Avenue sidewalk. I'm sure you've all driven by Minot Avenue and seen the lane closure for that construction. This is a 10% match by the city. So the city's contributing $109,000 and the state's $1 million, just about. So the intersection improvements are ADA improvements, crosswalk improvements, new ped head signals, new timing sequences, obviously the new sidewalk on Minot Ave, which will connect the State Trail all the way around the bin wall. Before the construction, you could see the beaten path that students and pedestrians have been using, that 1 foot wide grass path in front of that old retaining wall to walk. This will complete that loop. The Main Mill Broad intersection upgrades project. This is, the construction estimate is $1.7 million. The city is contributing 10% of that cost. This project bids in June. These are all state projects funded and approved through the ATRC program. And then Route 4 will not construct this year, but it does bid this fall. I wanted to include it just so you knew. and that's the $3.25 million. This is a big project. It will essentially be closing cross-traffic from the Turner Street, Fair, Martin, all that. You will not be able to take a left-hand turn out of these streets. This has been a highly publicized, well-designed, talked about project for years and years. It will actually bid this fall for construction next year. And that's all I had for construction for next year. If anyone has any questions about those projects or the funding mechanism or anything like that?
Do we know how far the Hotel Road project has fallen down the state's list of things to do?
That is, it's not that's a ATRC funded project, and I believe the dollars become allocated in 2022.
Clarifying on that point, the Hotel Road,
That's
Lewiston
project by the
Junction.
airport.
Lewiston Junction
Okay.
to,
Hardscrabble.
Hardscrabble.
on the opposite side of Hotel Road, do you have an update on when the state was going to do bridge replacement?
That is happening this summer. It's not a replacement, it's a deck replacement, I believe. They're widening it.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Actually, they're raising it. And as part of that project, I can't remember if they're widening it. I think they might be adding one beam, but they are raising it, so the approaches will be changed. And that will be, that bridge, I forgot to include that, thank you, I can get you more information on that, is actually going to be closed during construction. So there'll be detour signs and how do you get around and all of that will be, it's a short closure, but it will be closed.
I was part of I went to the public hearings of Maine DOT.
Okay.
I think it was a year or 2 years ago. Yeah. I thought, if we could just get clarification, website, we're talking about over a year-long closure of Hotel Road.
No.
At least that section, because they're going to build the bridge, then slide it over to replace the curb.
No, they're not doing that anymore.
Oh, so they've updated the plan, side?
Yes,
Okay,
but I'll get you clarification for that.
good, thank you.
Second and Third Street, all the way up. Sidewalks as well. When are we going to expect something to be done there?
Third Street will be this year.
Sidewalks included?
Yep. Yeah, whenever we do a road reconstruction project like that, the sidewalks are included.
Second Street?
Second Street is not on the list for this year. We haven't developed the list for next year yet.
I have one more question. On the Beach Hill Road, are you guys going to be able to address the structural part of the road as you get near to the top of the hill?
Yeah, there are sections that receive, primarily it's an overlay, but there are sections where a box cut may be required. They do testing. We'll do testing drilling before we actually do the work to determine if there's anything significant, because there is that one short section where there's always a big heaves and problems like that.
I can't remember whether it was a city manager or Eric Cousins who mentioned at a community meeting about Whitman Spring Road potentially being looked at because it would be part of a plan for recreation access.
Yep. That hasn't happened yet. There was a discussion about adding sidewalk up through Whitman Spring to the potential of a boat launch. That project hasn't come as of yet, so that hasn't hit the radar yet in
Okay.
terms of design or construction.
Thank you.
I guess that's all. Thank you, Dan. You can segue right into your next workshop topic, which is spring cleanup.
Bulky waste collection is what we call it.
Bulky waste and collections, yes, thank you.
Change the names.
So, just a brief history on it. The current program occurs once every 2 years. So every 2 years we do the bulky waste collection. It takes place over a 2-week period. It's separated by the day the trash collection for that street occurs. Maybe they're in the first week, maybe they're on the second week, to try to limit the amount of time that people have their trash out, their waste out. We collect mattresses, couches, TVs, brush, tires, bulky waste. Material not collected, we do not collect demolition debris. We changed that, it's probably been 5 or 6 years now. There were too many injuries. People were essentially gutting houses and putting them on the side of the street for us to collect. That's not the purpose of this program, and we don't collect wood debris, demo debris anymore. Paint, if it's a dried out paint container, we'll collect it. If it's got wet paint, we do not. There's other avenues for you to dispose of that. You can bring it to Sherman-Williams. There's the hazardous waste collection that's done at the Lewiston Transfer Station once a month that Auburn residents are free to bring their material to, and the city pays for that disposal. Current program costs. For disposal and contractors in 2019, which was the last year we did it, it was $45,000. This can vary significantly depending on waste costs at the time, contractor costs at the time. 2019 was actually a good year. We got very good prices for the disposal of most of the items, which was great. So it averages, that was a good year, 45,000. It can go up to 60,000. It all depends on when we go out, how much things cost at the time. Employee time, it's 2 weeks of solid work for 34 employees. So it's over 3,000 man hours. We have 9 highway employees doing other tasks. Those would be our parks and recs, our parks crews that are still maintaining our parks and our ball fields. And we also have we have a 2-man crew that also does all the trash cans in the city, and that doesn't stop. We reduced that down to 1 during this time, but they do the trash cans in the parking garage, the trash cans in the parks, all that sort of thing. So that still all occurs. And additional costs, over the past 10 years, I had Jill and Chris, thank you, pull the numbers. And we average about $50,000 in workers' comp claims per year as a result of spring cleanup. Some years we might not have anybody injured. Some years we own a back. Some years we own a shoulder. So over the past 10 years, we've averaged about $50,000 a year. Just to show you that there are, besides the little things like nails and fingers and stitches and stuff like that, there are some significant injuries that occur. And you can see from the pictures why that happens. You have 2 guys, we're not built, Public Works isn't built for this type of thing, so we have guys picking up couches, throwing them in buckets of excavators and loaders, and then those actually have to back up in the street. We don't have, because you have to dump it into a truck at a 90-degree angle, so you have people flagging. It's a complicated task that occurs during this time.
Dan, if I could just, for point of clarification, I'm sorry, but on employee time, 3,000 plus hours.
Yep.
Would be the average blended rate all in hourly compensation, so forth. They're on $20 an hour. Just trying to come up to
Probably with the new pay study, probably around 22.
so roughly $66,000 a year on that line item. So altogether, you're looking at around 150,000 roughly.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are alternatives to this program. There could be a self-serve system, such as Lewiston does this. There's a bunch of other new communities that do this. I've actually been in coordination with Maine Waste to Energy about a program like this. What would happen is residents would be allotted a weight that they're allowed to dispose of every year. Typically, it's half a ton, so 1,000 pounds. And the city would be responsible for paying the disposal fee. So brush and TVs can continue to be brought to Public Works as they are now. As you know, we have a brush pile out behind the sand shed, and we also collect TVs in our office. We come in, you sign the forms showing that you're an Auburn resident, you're allowed to dispose of TVs at our facility at no cost. We've talked with Maine, I've been in coordination with them, and to change their software system that they currently use at the gatehouse would be at the high end $5,000 to set it up so that everyone would be registered. You'd come in and they'd be able to track how much waste you brought so that you don't, once you hit that 1,000-pound limit, you would be responsible for the costs to dispose of that material. And I believe it's like 5 cents a pound. Based on the population and based on the program that Lewiston currently runs, which would be very similar to this, we're guessing $20,000 in annual costs. I'm guessing that number would be a little bit higher to start and drop off A good guesstimate would be around $20,000 a year. And then there's the other option, which is no bulky waste pickup at all. A lot of communities also use this route, where brush and TVs would continue to come to Public Works, but everything else would be a responsibility of the homeowner. So I'm open to questions about the alternatives in our current program and costs associated with it. And
Why don't you send your TVs out to Waste Management out, the facility we own, instead of you guys collecting them and them also taking them in?
we collect TVs. There's no cost to the city currently. We have a company that we've contracted with that supplies us with the bins, and we simply load them in the bins, and they come in once a week, usually typically Fridays. And they collect the bins and give us new ones. So there's no cost for disposal to the city.
I guess it's like a lot of other things we do, there's no cost, but there is cost when you look at I've seen guys out there telling people where to back up, how to back up, where to put this and where to dump the TVs off. If you didn't have to bother with it at all, then there would be absolutely no
Oh,
cost.
absolutely. I'm more than willing to say bring your TVs there as well. Right now, we also collect, we'd have to change the program because currently we do collect TVs from other communities. They pay a fee, like I want to say Green is one of them. You pay $5, they give you a slip. They bring the slip. We don't get that $5. I don't quite understand how that program works, but we get the TVs, but they give us the slip and it's all good.
I want to sign up for that.
Yeah.
Councilor Zani, you had a question?
Thank you. Is there any conversation about reducing the weight and sort of bulk of waste that would be collected? Say you could only put out up to this many pounds, not,
We have no way to measure when we're going door to door. We don't have scales in our buckets like a contractor would have at the pit or something like
but I
that.
mean, could you say no furniture?
We could, it doesn't mean they wouldn't put it out, and that's one of the primary things that we do pick up, so.
Can you remind us of what the parameters are for residents participating in the program and whether or not, on average, people stick to it? Like the amount that, I think that, isn't there a rule about the amount, not volume, but amount that people are allowed to put out and when to put it out? And you're not supposed to touch other people's piles, but people go, you know what I mean? Like, just, can you explain a little bit more about how it goes every year?
Yeah, well, yes, there are rules associated with it. There is supposed to be no picking through the piles, because what happens with it is when you go through the piles, I'd say, 1 out of 10 is great. And they, carefully, they separate, the person was really good. They separated their metals, their bulky waste items, their trash, their plastics. But then when we get there, someone's gone through and picked through everything, and it's strewn all about, and now we have to go through and try to separate it again. And, they only wanted the covers to the grills because that's the good metal, so they left the rest of it. It just becomes a real issue with regards to pile maintenance. So people are expected to separate the piles out front. There's supposed to be no more than a pickup truck load of brush, for instance. That's one of the things we have to do is we hire an additional contractor for 2 weeks to come haul brush with us because there's just so much of it that we would be out there for a month just collecting brush. Maybe that will improve now that we have the big brush pile by our offices, but typically that's what happens. And there's no good way to do something like brush because we have to put 2 trucks side by side, essentially close the road because the pulp truck, we only have 1 pulp truck. So he has to load into the dump trailer for the brush once his truck is full. Because there's so much of it, we have to haul with a dump trailer as well, and there's only one way to load it in there, and it's a process. Most people are pretty good about following the rules. We do go around, supervisors, that's all their job primarily during those 2 weeks is go ticket items that aren't supposed to be out there and ticket piles that are not allowed. We've had instances on, what was it? right off of Gamage, there was someone who had trash piled up to the second floor window where they were throwing it out the window. So obviously we ticket that pile. But that's the kind of things we do run into is some people definitely do take advantage of it. When you drive down a lot of the multifamily houses, there'll be 10 mattresses out front. There'll be, which amazes me that people have that many mattresses in their house, but that aren't being used, but it happens.
Councilor McLeod first, please.
So you kind of touched on the multifamily aspect. So I don't own a truck. I have no way to get my bulky waste to a residential place. So without having bulky waste pick up to my house, I have no way to get rid of this material. So I would need some sort of either on-call, on-demand, or some other industry to come pick up my waste at that point, at which point I wouldn't be bringing the waste to the transfer station. Somebody else would, you know what I mean?
Yes,
So
the
like,
way the
that's
program
issue
works
would be-
is you show your license. So say you would hire someone to come get it, or you would call your brother-in-law with a truck and you'd go bring it over. You'd show your license, say this comes from my address, and that's how it's tracked. It's tracked by address. So that a weight allotment would be charged towards that address.
So, but if there was a business that was doing this, I wouldn't hand my license to them to go.
Well,
bring it. You know what I'm
you
saying?
go-
Like that, I would
Yeah.
have to know someone
And
who
if you
has a truck
yes.
or,
Yep.
okay.
I mean, there are obstacles, obviously, and just like to say that the bulky waste program we do now, landlords aren't supposed to bring material from other cities here to dispose of, but that happens too. I mean,
So, Councilor Zani?
Have you stopped this service for the city, and if so, what was the response? And what could you imagine the response to be?
there was what, Phil, maybe you recall, or Leroy, it was what, maybe 8 years ago? 9, 10 years ago, I remember there was a time where oh no, that was recycling where we stopped it. We've never not done bulky waste pickup. We've never not done it every other year. It used to occur every year, and we've reduced it down to every other year. There's never been a time where it
I think there was a
hasn't.
year where it was not planned on, and then it came back to the council, and the council
Yeah, that's-
went ahead and
yeah.
I think that was
made
2019.
that a
or
requirement. So
2018.
I think that's as far as it went. It didn't make it through budget, but they came back and said, we will have it.
Was it because of an outcry from the community?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
big time.
Anybody else want to ask a question that hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet first? No? Councilor Boss?
Thank you. I think that, I understand there's definitely community interest. I personally utilize the service, and it's an excellent one, particularly for the cost of our taxes. I think it's a great additive service. However, the last time that we had bulky waste pickup, it rained for the full 2 weeks.
Yes.
And I couldn't help but think every single day about the people whose job it was to go out and lift this ungodly heavy furniture that had been sitting out completely soaked. So there has to be some kind of alternative or something in the middle, because it's just too much of a liability for us to take on as a city, I think.
And if I could, to dovetail off that, if we talk about liability, we're talking about costs. What are the lost opportunity costs associated with staff? I mean, this is your entire department minus 9 individuals that are doing or dedicated for 2 weeks. What's the lost opportunities here for
So
Auburn?
what happens is, typically in the spring, we're doing park cleanup. We're doing our typically mowing and trash pickup that we do like that, but it's our sweeping season. We run a full sweeping crew. We have to, as part of our stormwater license, we have to sweep the entire city once a year. This puts a stop to that for a period of over 2 weeks. So typically we can end, depending on the weather, beginning of July, we're done sweeping, and we can start our other projects like catch basin repair, culvert replacement, not potholes, but because we have to continue to do those during this time. Any other type of little construction projects we have, this stops all of that work for those 2 weeks. So that pushes everything back 2 weeks, which means that we have to continue sweeping. We're not done sweeping because of the 4th of July, there's a lot of vacations. We typically don't stop sweeping until almost the end of July. And that we essentially lose a month of construction time to do anything else. So there is a big opportunity loss, and we can't take on big projects we won't be able to do any big projects this year. We'll have to stick to just the smaller repairs and replacements and things like that because we don't have the time.
And one follow-up on that too. Cost and time post bulk pickup. I remember Councilor Boss is saying about the rainy season, and every year I know I get a lot of complaints. We get a lot of complaints if we don't do it. We also get a lot of complaints after we do it because of the trash, the pickers. And I say pickers, people driving by and rooting through garbage for stuff. How do you characterize or describe that during the season and then post-season?
The constant battle. We try to partner with the police as much as we can to, when we spot someone with a trailer driving around, we notify PD. If they have time, we'll pull over that person, explain to them that they're not to be doing what they're doing, and try to, it all happens at night most of the time, and it's
a lot during the day too.
well, yes, but those people we can usually catch, so we can. And it's not because the city wants. We don't make enough money in the recycling costs for the metal. You know, it's not. We're not getting rich on this. It's just the fact that the piles are destroyed when we get there, and the material is everywhere. And so, yes, it's 2 weeks for those 34 employees, and then typically it's another week for a crew, so 5 to 7 guys to go around, pick up stuff that was missed, pick up the cleanup. The brush continues. Typically, we can't get the brush in 2 weeks, so that those guys continue. But it's for 2 weeks, it's solid everybody, and then after that, it's usually another week of cleanup and debris management. And then what happens is we tag a pile with a yellow tag. It's basically a warning. Please remove this from the curb. It's not allowed to be here. It's not material we pick up. And then the next day or 24 hours later, we try to go with a red tag that says you must remove it. Then we get code enforcement involved. They have to, because we can't find anyone, they can find people, but then it would usually, typically what happens is it ends up down the street somewhere, and if we can't identify it, it's a headache, I'll say. If it went away, it would not break my heart at all. But I understand it's a service that a lot of people like, and if we do it, we do it.
So, are there any other questions logistically?
Just a point of clarification. The $50,000 in workers' comp, that was broken down over 10 years at $50,000. So that's, correct me if I'm wrong, $100,000 per.
Oh, yeah, it's $50,000 a year, so say 10 years, it was $500,000.
Okay, for 5 spring cleanups.
It was maybe 6, because we might have done it every year, those first couple of years.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
So breaking this down, just because I like math, this works out to being about, just for the financial impact. I'm sorry, Councilor Gary, you had a question. Go.
It's not a question, it's a statement. Is it about time for that?
Almost. I just want to, there's one piece of information to put in perspective, then I'll come right to you. You're looking at around $12 to $13 per household per year in cost. I just wanted to break it down kind of in that, that range, and that's taking the $150,000 rough average. So, Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm opposed to doing away with spring cleanup. We need to have it. Because what happens when we don't have spring cleanup is tenants will move out of a building, the landlord may not have transportation to get the stuff out, and the stuff is stuffed in the attics, it's stuffed in the cellars, it's stuffed in the hallways. If there's a fire, we're putting our fire department at risk because they gotta rush through there, and if it's dark and there's no power, they're running into things, and it also adds more fuel to the fire.
Well, Councilor Gary, if I could, on that, and I just want to give you, that as a landlord myself, if you can't clean up after your tenants, there's, probably shouldn't be a landlord. I've had Leroy's junk removals, shameless plug for those guys because they're great, come and empty out apartment buildings before to get rid of that. I do believe our code enforcement does check on this during safety checks on multi-units too. I just want to make sure that, we're not just making broad brushes, because there's the majority of landlords that I know of make sure things are picked up and so forth, and furniture's moved out.
You still see it. You might have good landlords, or you might have tenants that have bought furniture and the kids wear it out and they have no place to put it because it's the off year of our spring cleanup, and they get something new and the place that they got it from isn't taking it back, so it's stuffed everywhere. And then in regards to putting couches and chairs, we see that all the time now in the elements. Maybe we should have a rule saying that if you're gonna put out something especially made of cloth, you gotta put a tarp over it so that it's covered and water protected from the, weather protected from the elements.
Councilor Carey, then Councilor Moore.
I just personally would like to see a modified program. I understand that from your standpoint that this is basically like a one-point shot kind of thing, but as you mentioned, part of the problem that we have is people keep putting stuff out long after our pickup is done. And what I would like to see is some kind of, the city maybe address a drop-off thing for the citizens to be able to take their stuff there. I don't need somebody to pick my stuff up, but I would like to be able to take it in. I have a truck, I have that advantage, but rather than have the city come around working on my schedule, it would make it much easier if I could just take the stuff in and say, okay, my name's Brian, and you've got 1,000 pounds, you're up to 700 pounds, you've got 300 pounds more. I would find that much easier, and it would make it that much easier on the city to be able to, because it'd be one less place to stop.
Okay, Councilor Walker.
I was going about the same line as Councilor Bryan here. When you go to other communities, especially down south, they do this all year round. They don't just take 2 weeks out of the year or 4 weeks out of the 1 month. They spread it out, they contract it out, and if he's correct about the workman's comp, whatever that number was, you said 100,000 for whatever period. If this is 10 years, it's multiplied by whatever, comes out to be whatever the big number is, $100,000 a year. Every year we take our time and do this. That number probably goes up and down like a rubber ball
It does.
too. So I would say that there needs to be a whole master plan done here. Who can we work with out there, like Pine State or Pine Tree or whatever they call themselves? And can we come up with something? I know when I'm down south on brush, for instance, they use the same garbage picker. They throw the brush in the back, they pull the lever, that thing pushes it in. They go down and up and down roads, and when that thing is full, they go to the dump where you dump the brush. So that goes out on Wednesdays. Furniture and junk goes out on Tuesdays. Your trash goes out on Wednesday. And this company comes along and they do their job and it's over with. The Public Works doesn't do it. It's something that's contracted out and is planned out how you're gonna do it. And they don't do it 12 months a year. They've got periods when they do it. So we're spending $200,000-300,000 here every year, because especially the injuries, and he can't afford people out of work. Then it sets him behind, so the number is even worse than that. So I think we need to look at a good plan. How can we hire people out and get this done?
Dan, can you just scroll back to, so we have the options again that you presented? The first one is obviously do as we do.
Do as we do.
And then these two, okay, I just want to make sure that was there for reference. Counselor?
Yeah, I would just like to agree with Councilor Carey and Councilor Walker that I think having the self-serve system would be a really good basis, because that would give us that year-round ability. But then also, if the ability is to spread out our spring cleanup so it's not 2 weeks in the spring, but spread it out citywide throughout spring through fall, when we're not having snow, that, okay, this block of blocks, your, bulky waste pickup, if you require it, will be this week. Because then I can take stuff all year as I need to, but if there's something I can't get out, then there's an ability for me to get rid of it, at least, in that year. And as you said, that the more we do it, the more stuff goes away. So eventually, hopefully, we would have less stuff if we were able to do it more frequently.
You would think
But
that,
I'm
but it doesn't work like that.
It sounds really good.
Couches multiply. Any more questions on this? I think we have, or any, I'll throw it out there. Is there any other type of fourth proposal? Not to muddy, your water's too much, but is there any type of hybrid that someone would like to propose, talk about?
Yeah, I appreciate all the council's feedback on this. I think what we will do, Dan, I don't think we've ever tried to put this out to bid.
Yeah.
When would we do that?
I did it, I don't know, they all go together. 6 years ago, I'd say, I called around and got prices. I can refresh that and get you numbers. It was a lot.
So we could get those numbers, we'll make those available, but then what we also can do is we can provide the hybrid. And the hybrid model would be, I think a lot of residents, like Council Carey said and others, would like to have the opportunity to just bring their waste whenever they want to bring it, give them a balance, they can then work off it. Small investment up front for them to be able to track that at Maine Waste to Energy. We're bringing it to Maine Waste to Energy, which certainly helps with their mission and what they're working on. And so if we can do the hybrid model, we'll research that and we'll take a look at bids. And what we'll do is we'll bring that back forth when we're talking about budget.
And if I could make a recommendation on the hybrid model, this is bulky waste pickup. If we can limit this to true bulky waste items, it eliminates a lot of the fly-offs, the water damage. For example, I know people, including myself, that would put cardboard boxes of old papers out there and have it picked up. That's not bulky waste per se. But if it's just couches, mattresses, refrigerator, whatever the bulky is, instead of all the little stuff that gets put in that pile, I'm thinking just from watching y'all work, that probably would be a benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The little stuff causes that long-term mess.
And I know this is a challenge for Dan, but I'm one where I hate having regulation if we're not enforcing it. So if we have this no picking, if we can eliminate some of it, and I know Dan's not gonna like this because it then messes up each one of those piles, but I'd rather not have a regulation that we're not actually doing. And so, so that's something we'll talk about as well, and we'll bring that back before you, because we might as well eliminate it if it's not gonna be effective.
I've called the police on a couple pickers before, so, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Okay, I don't think there's anything else then? Very good, so we'll look forward to that. I mean, we have to pull the trigger on this one, I'm thinking in the next 30 to 60 days,
No, you'll have until the budget.
until the budget, even though April, May.
This is, one thing we heard at the last time was, there was no line item for this in the budget.
Right.
You are seeing a line item in there this year for spring cleanup.
So whatever the modified plan that you come up with, it will be a line item in the budget to be voted on.
That's correct.
Very good.
I've
Okay.
got a straight question dealing with this. If I put out stuff on my lawn for spring cleanup or whatever we're gonna call this thing, and you come driving by and you see, I'll say high chair, and it's good and you want it, if they come up to my house and ask me if they can have it, that's not technically dump picking if they get my permission to take it, right? Or is it?
Well, once you put it beside the road, it's really open for anyone. That's why I would say let's eliminate that. Keep looking over at Dan, but I'm gonna suggest maybe just eliminate that. So if somebody sees something they like, take it and go. You know, you're gonna lose, you know, we're already losing money for scrap. Like Dan said, it's not about the scrap revenue, because that's already going out the door. By the time they come along, any precious metals are already picked.
The big problem that I've seen, and I've talked to staff and, you know, our conversations over the last 3+ years with a lot of us here, it's not necessarily the picking, it's the piles of other miscellaneous garbage that gets put in the mound, and the digging through that, and that just gets blown away, gets to the side of the road, that creates a mess. If you keep it out to the big bulk items, okay, nobody's digging and has making the mess, it's okay. There's accidents that happen every year. I bet if we pull up the accident report, I've seen 2 of them in front of my house. They'll stop, hit the brakes hard, come right in and take what they want. So, you know, I think if we look and do a 3rd degree look into what the problems are, I don't think picking necessarily is, but it's all the little stuff that gets tossed on top of the valuables. Yeah. So, okay, so we'll see that in the agenda, or the budget rather. Let's move on to the last topic. Thank you, Dan. City ordinance review with the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just gonna get to our spot here. In your packets, you had, this is again, continuation of our ordinance review process. Chapter 24, which is Human Relations and Services, the General Assistance Program. It was defined, we had made changes regarding definitions. Let me pull that up real quick. You'll see under the proposed ordinance is the added line relating to federal stimulus checks may not be included as a lump sum payment. So this is a language that we'll have in there, so that way there, It's very clear in our ordinance. This is a requirement that came out through general assistance to have this change. Any questions about that? Okay. Next, I thought it'd be good for us to have a conversation. You'll see in the order further on in the meeting, we're talking about an ad hoc committee. This was brought up between some counselors regarding an opportunity to really dig into the fees appendix that we have, to have a couple councils spend some time with staff digging into this, being able to really identify which fees are state required, which fees are maybe a local ordinance regulation that was carried over the years. Because what ended up happening, staff was talking about this today, what's happened is that there was never standardized codes. All municipalities had their own codes. At some point, state said, here, this is what we're gonna adopt as a standard code. Local towns, communities then adopted that, but some were carried over, and that happened here in Auburn. So we have some that have carried over. Whether or not we want to continue with those or not, it's really going to be up to the council. But you need to know which ones they are. And so the committee, we're working with staff to actually go through each ordinance and identify which ones are state regulated, which ones are city ordinance, and what I will be proposing to the committee as we move forward with that. If it's a state standard already, we can have a general ordinance in the very beginning of each one of these classifications, say it's plumbing or electrical, that just states, as a city, we've adopted this code, and we will follow that code. So we don't have to have numerous other ordinances that are stating the same thing. And if you go through and you've taken a look at it, you'll see where there's a lot of state references on each one of those ordinances. All it's doing is referring back to language that's already in place. So I think we can clean up our language a lot. I think it can make it very clear for individuals. They can go right to that code. Many of them are very familiar with that, especially if they're a licensed plumber or electrician. They're using that code on all their other projects. Not having to know, well, what's different in Auburn would be helpful. And so we could take a look and identify that. The other piece of what I would hope the committee to take a look at as well is regarding what permits could we allow for third-party inspections? State statute allows that. Our city ordinance already allows that. It's already listed out that you could have third-party inspections that are done. Then if somebody is licensed by the state and they've taken their permit out, they would just include their state license number on their permit. We would then receive that, it's filed. It's nothing that any of our staff would have to review. We wouldn't have to go out and inspect. So there's some things that, as we're digging into this, that we're seeing as options that can be considered. And so I would hope that the ad hoc committee could start taking a look at that, come forward with some recommendations on how we want to proceed moving forward. Questions about the ad hoc committee?
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great idea to have this committee, but I don't like open-ended stuff. Now, is this a committee that's going to be co-chaired by the two good counselors here, McLeod and Voss? Or is this the mayor's committee? That's one question, sort of. The other thing is, how many members is going to be on this committee? And who's going to be on the committee besides the good counselors and city staff? Because I would like to see some people from the outside that do work with these different codes on a day-to-day living, and how they, when they come to our town, or, I mean, they're mostly Auburn residents, I mean, that I know of. I mean, I know a contractor can come from anywhere, but there are some Auburn residents that are contractors that deal for years and years with our city codes and ordinances. They would be a great resource of information of what they have to go through in order to get permits and whatever the steps and the hoops they got to go through, or versus the contractor or even somebody that does electrical and plumbing.
So,
They'll give you a non-staff that's more detailed oriented of what they go through.
so the great idea, let me just give you a little genesis to answer some of your questions, knowing that this is going to be an agenda item during our regular council meeting. This came up through conversations between myself, Councilor McLeod initiated. We talked last week about the pros and cons of a small work group, decided it should be a city council ad hoc committee with an end date of May 17th, which is in your packet, and left the makeup with Councilor Boss and Councilor McLeod. That is what you have in front of you later tonight. When we open this up after a motion, you can start talking about some of the makeups of the council, or excuse me, the committee. In my opinion, and I'll say this just now, this is a good ad hoc committee because it allows councilors and staff to meet fairly frequently without massive schedule changes and just start talking about it and getting this stuff out, answering questions, becoming, I don't want to say subject matter experts because it's almost impossible to have a subject matter expert on these topics, but to help bring this information back to the council for final determination. Fact-finding predominantly, recommendations, everything has to come back to the council. I would encourage people from the community to get involved and talk about their experiences, and all this, and whether you want to add that or not, can be done later during the agenda item. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there, Chair McHugh, it's your workshop.
Sorry, just to go back to who else is included. Yes, we have staff. What we are doing, if we just think about workload on the numerous projects, and a lot of that's impacting many of you, you're serving on several different committees, the city, the comp plan is currently underway. So we have a lot of other initiatives that are taking place. Some of that's also happening within our planning department where a lot of this work will be coming from. So that's why through the city manager's office, we've kind of taken the load on this. We'll be reaching out to that staff for feedback, but really for the two councils that are working on this, we'll be working with the city manager's office, and then we'll bring in those individuals as we need to.
Is there more on ordinances?
I'm sorry. Yeah, if there's nothing else on ad hoc.
Well, one of the things with the two councilors that are going to sit on that committee and work with the staff, I really would like to see more than the final. There's too many times we wait for the final, and it's kind of like some of the other things that you people have been doing here. We wait for the final, we are told we're going to do some things in the middle somewheres, but it doesn't happen, it's the final. So I would like to say that I would like some kind of minutes or a report from them before the final so we can see what it is that they don't like or do like, or what are we thinking we may want to change, so the council is kind of involved with it before the final, because the final is, come here, you say, this is what we think we've seen, and this is what we want to do, and what the hell do we really know about it? We don't know nothing about it, so that's the part that I don't like. I'd like to be briefed some on how you get into these points.
Yeah, I think you'll get 5 updates. I think the plan is that we'll update at each council meeting what's taken place in the 2 weeks prior. So that way everybody will be up to speed on where we're headed. We'll work that into the schedule under reports. So nothing else on this. Last one that I just wanted to cover was regarding just the process of how we'll be bringing these forward. As we have revisions, they're ready, they're teed up, and they're ready to move forward, that's when we'll be introducing them. So we talked about boards and committees at a previous workshop. There was some that wanted still some follow-up on some of those items. Staff is working on that. The regulatory board seemed overwhelmingly, people were in alignment with that. So that's why that's being teed up for you tonight during the council meeting to start moving forward with that. That's how you'll see these. As we have them ready, we'll move them forward. The one from general assistance, you'll see that at our next meeting. That'll be ready. We can move that forward. We have a few others that we're working through right now with staff. We have to cross-reference a lot of these. I noticed in regulatory board, what you'll see next week as a first reading, separate from this group, is that we need to reference the Board of Appeals, the reference in under a different article. So that was not included. We'll make sure that's included for first reading next time. So that's how we'll be moving these forward. Also at the next meeting, under second reading for the regulatory board, what we would propose is that at the second reading, we would look at actually having a date set for that to take place. And that would be on May 1st. Because the way that ordinance currently works is that once you go ahead and pass second reading, it becomes effective within five business days. We don't want this to go into effect in 5 business days because we might have other items that are going before the Board of Assessment or Board of Appeals. We need to make sure that we have another team ready to take that. So that means it would need to go through the council committee, board committee selection group to review those applications and then make recommendations. Sue believes it's a good solid month and a half on that. So we've given them about a 2-month window before that would take effect, and then we would have now a regulatory board.
And just if I could,
Yep.
just to add, this is all coming up tonight. Remember what we talked about last meeting? Where we're going to take this, just like the city manager said, in very small bite-sized chunks so we don't confuse situations, and there's a lot of chunks. The first one is the formation, and we have a little bit of time. We can do a little tiny workshop on this, let's discuss this, so that we don't have to do it later on in our meeting. But this is really the merging of the, Planning Board of Appeals and the Zoning Board of Appeals into one committee. Right now, it's probably the 2 committees that we have a significant problem finding members for, and their jobs are very, very similar with regards to appeals, adjudication, and so forth. So combining these 2 on May 1st would allow us to really start the process of making our regulatory reviews consistent, concise, highly trained members of the public to actually go in. Yeah, it's turning it from 14 members, which right now I think we have 8 empty slots, at least 5, to 7. So consolidation, and these people become subject matter experts in appeals processes. So that was kind of something that came out of the mayor's ad hoc. It's a good one to start with. So if we want, Phil, I don't want to totally sidetrack you, but is there anything else?
No, that's it.
So open this up to a little bit of conversation and questions now, I think we have the time, so we can talk about it. Any questions on this? There's like 6 or 7 different orders. I do see something in here. I'll say right now the first one, which is the oversight, the city council creating. Let me read it. It's a lot. There's a word that I think, and I'd like to ask you if you want added, but the city has such boards, commissions, committees. This is section 2-381. The last sentence is added. The council has created advisory boards to provide oversight and communication between the various boards, commissions, and committees, as well as elected officials. That's what we talked about before. I think what we should do in here is put the council has the ability to create advisory boards to provide oversight, leaving it up to the councils to determine later on whether they want to actually do that. And that can be discussed later instead of an absolute. That's just an idea that I had after my review. But this starts laying that groundwork. So, questions? Councilor Bossi?
You're referring to the boards that we created above the committees?
Yeah, they're the 2 councilors and the chairs of the boards. Yeah, those 2.
What's your recommendation, saying that the council has the ability to enact them rather than?
Added the word ability to leave it up to the councils now and in the future whether or not they wanted to do that.
The current language, Brian, if you can scroll that to maybe page 30.
Yeah, it says the council has created advisory, which they actually haven't yet.
Got it.
So it just is, I don't want to say ambiguous, but a little bit looser to a point. So the council's going to determine the makeups of those boards in the latter period, but it gets it in the record.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's just an idea that I had reviewing it and thinking about the pros and cons of everything. And we'll show it. So is this the addition of that word?
I'm supportive of that language from what I understand. My one question is on the oversight, because I remember during the conversations for the mayor's ad hoc group that we talked a lot about how these boards would be for communication and for collaboration, but they didn't have any authority over the committees that were below them. So oversight, I'm wondering if there's a word that creates a little more clarity about that relationship.
Yeah, I hear it's basically, instead of it could be, I'm just going to go, we're in workshop at this point, create advisory, the council has the ability to create advisory boards to facilitate communication between the various boards, commissions, and committees, as well as the elected officials, which is really, there's no oversight, there's no, you can't do this, you can't do that, but this is the communication facility. Provide or facilitate, facilitate. Councilor Boss, you want to write this down and make that amendment? To facilitate. Or Tim, you got that? Facilitate communications? Okay. So that was the first one. So we can keep going down and give this a whirl, see if there's any issues and questions right now, if you're all good with that. So the second order would be Order 04-021-62021.
Mr. Mayor, question.
Yeah.
Would your recommended tweak, will you be able to offer it, or do you need to have a counselor? And if you need a counselor, then maybe Counselor Boss could include it in her revision?
Yeah, the ability and to facilitate communications, yeah, just one fell sweep and amendment, okay. Now that you're gonna be next up on this. So the next one, membership. The board of and you guys can read this as well, I can. Any questions on that? Any recommended changes, any thoughts?
I have a general question. I know we're still taking applications for our committees. Does any of this condensing affect the number of people we still need that we're taking applications for?
Well, we still need, we're gonna move through the process of filling that now.
Okay.
We'll see how the second reading goes. And then afterwards, that would all dissolve effective
We've only got
May 1st. And they would be, those who were on there would be encouraged to reapply.
Okay.
So it would go from 14 current positions down to 7.
And still, hold on, I'll look, that's a good question. Sue just sent a link, right, Sue? When did you send that? Sue?
Well, that's why I was curious to see if we're gonna fill positions that were gonna be absolved in 2 months, 3 months. That's all.
Yeah, so Sue, how many vacancies do we have on zoning board of appeals? And
Zoning Board of Appeals, I think it's 3, maybe 4. I can.
I'm looking, I got it, I found it, hold on. So Board of Assessment Review, we have 3 vacancies.
Board of Assessment.
Yep,
Yeah.
Board of Assessment,
Board of Appeals, I think 3, possibly 4.
5,
5. Wow. Okay.
5, 2 associates, and then 4, oh, wait a second, 2 associates and 4 full members, so actually 6. I think there's a header where it says 5 vacancies is wrong. So 6 plus 3, so we have 9. So yeah, when we have, last count, 1 application for each one of those 2. So fill them, because we need to have a quorum, or else if anything pops between now and May 1, we wouldn't be able to do it. And that has happened several times in recent memory, where we haven't had a quorum in order to do deliberations for those boards. Any questions on this one? Okay, let's move on to the next one. And this is what the city manager is referring to as well. This is really the term. We're still, again, talking about the same new board. Appointed to 3-year terms versus 5. And there is a methodology that we'll be working on later about that, which will have open enrollments twice annually. And then there'll be a nice rotation. So we're never losing all the legacy knowledge at the same time. And we'll never be out of quorum, so to speak. We'll be able to backfill those as needed if something happens in between those open enrollment periods. Any questions on that? Okay. And then the next one is section 2-432.
I had a quick question about the one before that. So where the terms will be 3 years, if I do a year and a half, I move out of Auburn, will the person who replaces me finish my term to not upset okay,
Yes,
gotcha.
yes.
This section is just defining it as assessment review, because the previous sections, that's what this was assessment review. So the appeal is, that's the language in here for appeal, is specifically guiding to assessment. So that's why this was highlighted as that.
And then the next one is 06-0216-2021, which is just changing the name to the Assessment Review Appeals Procedure. So it's taking both and merging. Did I skip one? Oh, that one? Yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I was just referring to.
Yeah, the assessment review, that's just a change of a name and consolidating
Right.
both.
It's taking that function, and actually identifying it still as assessment. It's just because previously we changed all the language to regulatory.
Okay. And then the next one is quorum. So the regulatory board, again, this is housekeeping to change the name, to clean this up and make it consistent all the way around. No questions there. More housekeeping on the following one, under quorum. And the rest of them are just functions of hygiene. Yeah,
Mr. Mayor?
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Section 2, 434, it talks about establishing such rules and regulatories governing the conduct of hearings. Is that going to be something that they're going to come up with, and it's going to be written down so that if I want to go in front of their board, I know what the rules are before I get to the board?
That's currently done.
Okay. I just want to make sure that they're not, just because you come in with an issue and Councilor Walker comes in with the issue, you guys each are treated differently.
This is established already.
Okay, just
This
want
is-
to
yep, there's no addition.
reaffirm that.
Any other questions on this? Again, this is the small bite at the apple, I think. Good. Anybody have any problems or questions or any other amendments they might want to make? Okay. Very good. We have approximately 23 minutes. I'm going to open this up. Council, we rarely have time to do this, okay? But let's take the next 10 minutes. Is there any issue that the council would like to bring up in workshop and talk about right now? Councilor, start off on the right. The Councilor Carrier.
And this may get into a little bit of what we've already talked about as far as permits and fees and things. I was talking with one of my constituents out on Trap Road, and I would like us to take a look at possibly reviewing the zones a little bit. And just to give you a brief history, this individual owns 93 acres on Trap Road and Royal River Road. He has a house out there currently. He has unusable land facing the Trap Road side of the property. And the rural residential was just stopped out there. I've talked to a lot of the folks downstairs. There was no reason for the zone to just stop. It's just where they happened to draw a line in a map. And he was wondering why it didn't go further down the road to Royal River. And I didn't have an answer for him. And I would like to see the council take a look at this or have staff take a look at this. We really need to be smarter about the use of this. I understand the need to stay farmland and forestry, but arbitrarily just stopping, which is a section that has been rural residential all these years, seems sort of odd to me, and I think we probably ought to review that to see if there are not areas that the zone shouldn't have been continued or changed, and the fees that are involved with it seem sort of absorbent. He was told that he could apply for it was terrible. You could apply for a change in the zoning, but to do that, you'd have to pay $700.
So Councilor Carrier, Councilor McLeod, and myself, and our subcommittee, we spoke about this exact same topic just Wednesday. We're talking about it again tomorrow night. Absolutely, it's going to be something that comes in front of this council relatively shortly. Okay, so as a review, and really it is the strips, for the rest of the council's knowledge, it's really the strip zoning or lack thereof of strip zoning in Auburn, and what it does cover and what it doesn't. The previous comp plan had trigger points that if a certain area reached there's 5 triggers. If it reached the majority of those triggers, then it had to come up for rezone. So into a rural residential, for example. So we're looking at that. We have all the information, and we should get some information back to you in the next week or so. Great, okay. Is there another topic? Those are easy ones? Great, we got 8 minutes left. Let's keep going with the easy stuff. Go around just quick. Counselor Walker, anything?
I'd like the manager to look at why we drop TVs off at Public Works when we have a facility that you can drop off anything you want out there pretty much. And we've been accepting TVs out there for 3 years now, and Public Works is still accepting them up there, where there's no reason for the community to have a facility that accepts these things, and then Public Works takes it on themselves that people should drop them off up there. It's just, it's not needed to have two facilities doing the same job, when that's why that facility out there was built, to do that kind of work.
Yep.
Is that free out there to bring it, or?
I think it's $2.
Oh, okay.
But I like the idea of the hybrid where every resident of Auburn has some sort of credit to be used. I frequent MWAC a lot. I love the service. It's easy. It's great. And the people are super helpful. Okay.
And my second thing is, I have asked Phil and I've asked everyone else to look at where they put their waste, meaning tree waste, brush, crap like that is being put up there where we spent almost $1 million to build a beautiful building to be able to wash your trucks and take care of your trucks. And they pile this crap up there. Sometimes it's 25, 30 feet in the air because they need room for the next truckload coming in and the next truckload after that. And a city as large as we are, there's got to be a better place, out of sight, out of mind, than putting that in a place where we draw all summer long ball teams, the public and everybody else to go up there and play ball, and you're looking at a big pile of trash that's piled up there 40 feet in the air, like I said. There's absolutely no reason for that. It may be convenient for them, but it's a hell of an eyesore for the public, and that is not a place to be piling rubbish up that could burn down a brand-new building that we spent almost $1 million to build.
So just to clarify, I want to make sure that we're using the right terms. We're talking about brush, tree brush, not rubbish and not trash. I understand what you were referring to, but I just want to make sure the public and councilors know it's really the brush pile that's being left there. Councilor Walker and I have gone out, we've taken a look at that site, we've taken a look at some other sites. And part of the issue too is if we create a dump area somewhere, what we get there, and this is why we're putting a camera up there, is that people will dump everything else off their truck as well. My only concern is that if it's somewhere else, then it's just going to be more debris. But we're continuing to look at it. We did some improvements to the area by creating a wall, so we're not damaging the fence any further than it was. Many times what ends up happening is it happens over the weekend. You have somebody that's coming with multiple truckloads of brush and they're dumping it, and they're hauling it. And I've asked Dan to track how often we're hauling that so that we can get a good sense of just how much brush we're dealing with. And it's a lot. I mean, he can provide that, but we'll continue looking at it. I understand what Councilor Walker's thing. When we have softball tournaments, all these cars are parked right there, and we do have, most of the time, a very large mound of brush that's sitting right there. But this is our Public Works facility. That's that division between the two. But it would be helpful if we did have a different space that we could use that's still accessible to the public. That's another piece. We do have some areas that we talked about, but when I talked with Dan, I just don't want the public going that far out to have to dump something, trying to keep it so it's still accessible to the community. But that's something we'll continue to work on.
Any other counselors right here on the right side? Melks, Counselor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the good city manager included in our emails a letter from a constituent talking about our sidewalks. The gentleman, I think it's a gentleman, is in a wheelchair or power chair, and he tries to go from his home to the mall and around that area, and we're not plowing the sidewalks, and he ends up in the street. But we're seeing that all over. I've had issues for years about down here, our crosswalks and the safety islands not being, I mean, I can understand during a storm like this, but even a couple days after, that they should be cleaned so people can go through without threat or fear of falling.
Yeah, and it might be good, we've talked about this and workshopped this topic several times since I've been mayor in the last 3 years. The mathematical equation of number of people and equipment versus how many miles versus the durations of storm, and the overall cost. And if we can ask to dig that up again and redo that for you if need be. And just a frequency of when those sidewalks are cleaned and what the priority levels between sidewalks, streets. They're all different, they all interplay. So, but it is always something good, and they need to be done. It's difficult.
We also need
We
to,
have
if
two.
we're trying to get our walkable downtown, people won't come in this type of weather if they can't get through. And we're seeing more and more seniors and other age people that are either with the wheeled walkers, the power chairs, their scooters and things, that they need access to the sidewalk and shouldn't be in the street.
You know, if we could, this is one of the reasons, if you go back to an order tonight, we have some of these problems and how they affect certain groups and the whole city, of course. This would be something that I think would be great for the age-friendly group to talk with our Safe Streets, Complete Streets committees, in order to find out, and Public Works, of course, in order to come up with some viable solutions and review everything and report back to council. And I think that's important because your age-friendly committee is going to have a significant insight into the needs of what the community are that really utilize the sidewalks, and they not just utilizing them for pleasure, but they need them. So, again, it's up to the council. We can go into this issue again too, or we could look at potential solutions with some of our outside committees and see if there are any solutions that we can talk about.
This issue was brought up with, I think Larry Pelletier came as a citizen, talked about this in New Auburn. We took a look at, I asked Dan to show me the plow routes for sidewalks. We probably, in the winter months, we reduce sidewalk access in that New Auburn area by about 35%. So about 35% of the sidewalks are not plowed as part of the plowed route. They're just, if they're sidewalks on two sides, one side of the street's plowed, the other side's not. So that's something that we're digging into that information to have that data. And then what I need to do is to try to identify now what would it take for us to go ahead and clear all these sidewalks and which ones are our priority. And that's, currently they have them and they do prioritize them because of students walking. We've had obviously this year, a very different approach to that where they've been able to really stay on the roads, then go do the sidewalks later because schools are going to a hybrid model on most storm days. But we are digging into it. But I want to say, collectively, what I'm trying to identify is throughout the entire city, what's our reduction of sidewalk access during winter months. If it stays true with New Auburn, we're looking at about 35–40% of our sidewalks that are not currently maintained during the winter.
Question, when does this sidewalk out front of the city building gets cleaned up? I mean, I know we don't have a lot of traffic, but I noticed when I was in the counselor's office looking down, there was an awful lot of beaten down footprints.
Yeah, that's, so because of the type of sidewalk that we have here, I know that's a separate crew that comes and they shovel that off. It's not because of the brick type of sidewalk, not just here, but anywhere we still have those.
So a little follow-up on this one, I think. Councilor Walker quickly so I can get to the other councilors too.
Well, we can beat this horse forever, and we've done it forever and ever.
Yeah.
But we've got Court Street right here. Telephone pole's been a friggin' sidewalk now for years. Public Works knows that's there. They plow down to it because they can't get by it without going into the street. But the worst son of a gun thing about all, they know it, we know it, it's been there forever and ever, yet they go around it and nobody ever comes back to shovel a path so you can stay on the sidewalk and walk down the hill. You've got to walk into the street, out around the car, in the road, back to the sidewalk. And they know this. If you're a 3-year-old, maybe you don't learn. But they've been there for years and years and years. The pole's been there for years and years and years, and still they don't learn how to take a shovel and shovel a small path so some young lady can walk through that path, or I can walk through it. I gotta go out on the road and do it. And I've been beating this for 10 years and it hasn't changed yet.
Thank you. I've got to go. We have about 4 or 5 minutes. I want to make sure that we're fair. Councilor Boston, did you have your hand up too? Councilor McLeod, do you have anything?
No, I care about what Counselor Walker has to say, though.
Yeah. Councilor Boss and Councilor Lozano.
Is it the city's responsibility to plow out the parking lot that's at the top, the North Auburn Road side, northern side of the Whitman Spring Road Trail? That parking lot?
Oh, coming up to West Auburn Road?
Parking space? It's not a lot, the space.
I would have to check, I'm not sure.
Okay, because that was full. I had a constituent get stuck in the snow when they were trying to go for a hike.
The lot at the end of Whitman Spring. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Off
that
the-
parking
yeah,
area,
West Auburn Road.
the northern end,
No, wait, the northern end?
northern end.
Oh, the other side,
Yeah.
off north of Auburn Road.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Zani?
This is sort of piggybacks on what Councilor Carrier said. Somebody's been in touch with me, and it sounds like this has been discussed with you, Mr. Mayor. Stone Road and Townsend Brook Road, and there's LDCR and rural residential, and he's hoping that the comp plan will look at that zoning. He also, and if I can assure him, it seems like that is happening, but he also is questioning when there will be public input into the comp plan process.
There's a schedule. I'll turn it over to Phil, but I mean, the public comment is going to be when it gets brought in front of the council as well, because things are going to happen piecemeal based upon a priority matrix. That email we do need to get, and I'm going to pull it up as Phil addresses the schedule a little if he could. And I'll get that out to Tim to you. 'Cause you see
Yeah,
that.
I would just say that there's at least 2 opportunities. One will be at the planning board level for public comment, and then the other one will be when it comes back to the council for a final adoption. And we can work on that schedule. I know Megan worked on that with the committee, but I don't have it right in front of me, so.
Okay, do we have any kind of approximation, 1 month, 6 months?
I think the plan was by June.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
By June.
June,
We're-
okay,
Yeah.
The committees, the subcommittees.
thank you.
Yeah, the subcommittees are actually meeting, we're meeting weekly and sometimes twice a week. Another meeting tomorrow. So we're really plowing through this stuff. Support's been good. But our goal in our subcommittee, and I believe it's the same with the other subcommittees as well, I think you guys are moving quite ahead of schedule, is to really bring all this, review it as a group, bring it all in bits and pieces to the council for an action. But our goal is to have everything done by June. The heavy lifting. Counselor?
One last thing is sort of a pet peeve. I was out this last week enjoying nature out at Mount Appetite, and I realize that you guys have been out there putting out new signs and everything. Maybe we need to put out some deer cameras because the signs are already being bent, defaced. It's very aggravating to see that the signs that went out there and the work that went into it, and seeing the edges bent up, and they're taking knives or rocks and basically ruining the maps. And, you know, it's just a terrible waste of money, time, if we not sort of make some kind of effort to find out who's doing it, because, you know, it's throwing good money after bad.
And I also, as Councilor Carey said, I noticed that as well, and my thinking was, are there more permanent signs that we can put there? Because I don't know when those signs went up, but
Like a week ago.
they got right to them.
Brand new, but
Yeah, they were up like 2 weeks ago.
They got
I
right
mean,
to them.
We've been chasing that around for better than 30 years. The
We'll find
same
that, we'll find that
thing,
person.
same thing year after year.
Okay, well, we just got a little, a little break here before our regular council meeting. Hopefully this has been helpful. You know, we haven't had a chance to really take 15 or 20 minutes and air some grievances. It's not even Festivus. So take a break, and we'll be back in 5. 2021. If you could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could, please stay standing. I'd like to just call for a moment of silence today. Just received news that Dr. Bernard Loan, who the Bernard Loan Peace Bridge is named after him, just passed away today at the age of 99. So. Thank you. Okay, first on the agenda, we have one consent item. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Carrier, second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Order passes by a vote of 7-0. Next are the minutes of the February 1st, 2021 regular City Council meeting. Are there any corrections? None being, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 1st, 2021 regular City Council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Carrier, second by Councilor Walker. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Minutes are approved by a vote of 7-0. Now we're going to move on to communications, presentations, and recognition. First is our Community Development Block Grant Annual Report presentation. Mr. Zach Lenhart will be presenting tonight. Good evening, Mr. Lenhart.
Good evening, councilors, mayors, and others. Thank you for having me tonight. This evening, I will be presenting the Program Year 2019 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, otherwise known as the CAPER, for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Grants that Auburn receives every year. The 2019 CAPER covers the period of July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. It's the city's fiscal year 2020. In typical years, the CAPER is due by the end of September, but because of the pandemic and the subsequent grants that we received from the CARES Act and setting up those programs, we got a waiver to push it back, the deadline, and we're still on that extension right now. So in program year 2019, in CDBG funds, we expended a little over $1 million, and in home funds, we expended $689,500. Those funds helped 529 unique, different low mod income persons or households were assisted. The first goal was prevent deterioration of housing stock. With CDBG funds, we completed 23 units during program year 2019, and 13 others were in various phases of construction. With the home rehab program, we had 7 completed units, and 10 others were in various phases of construction. Support of construction of new affordable units. Again, the 62 Spring Street finished up, I think, a little bit before the program year started. Construction was finishing up, but administratively we still had it open, so that's why it's getting reported in this year. That's a really cool building. I don't know if any of you have been down there, but there's 41 affordable and a couple of market rate units, and there's a nice commercial space below with a cool barber shop under there. It's a good addition to the street. 477 Minot Avenue was the other project that we supported with home funds. That's out by Fairview School on Minot Avenue. The other housing goals we had, the create mixed income neighborhoods and increase owner occupancy. That is accomplished through our home buyer down payment assistance program. We have trouble sometimes with that program because the houses have to meet the housing standard and be affordable to buyers. And in our housing market in Auburn, kind of those first-time home buyer, that affordability period is usually fixer-uppers. So typically, we have trouble kind of finding suitable housing for that program. Very often, though, buyers are able to find other financing to buy the house and will use our home rehab funds to rehab the home.
I'm sorry, Zach, do you have a count? I mean, when you say there are just none, we just couldn't give any funds out for anyone to buy a home.
Yeah, so I think we had 5 or 7 applicants, that through that program year that, we went through the eligibility with them, what they can afford, and they looked, we run it with we're in a partnership with Lewiston, so the programs are exactly the same, so people can shop kind of in Lewiston or Auburn. But we both, because the building has to be only, the mortgage payment would be 30% or less of their income. They have to be low to moderate income. So, right now you're at a small, a low starting point. And then the house has to be basically without defects, so there's very, it's a tight window to thread.
As market forces drive up the cost of homes and there's a lack of any homes on the market, hence we'll get people spinning wheels. Got it.
And as I think many of us have recognized, the prices of homes have been going up considerably, so yeah. And then the other goal, we had a fair housing. We have to kind of communicate fair housing goals and issues with residents. We typically do this with like a summit, landlord-tenant summit, and we had started discussing that and scheduling that with a couple other organizations, and that was in February, and then the pandemic hit, and that all got put on hold. So, and we're still looking to schedule one, but again, it's difficult with the pandemic. One of the goals of that program year is improve parks and community gardens. We had budgeted for the Whitney Street Garden, and we signed agreements in place with St. Mary's. But again, come springtime when construction was about to start, St. Mary's Nutrition Center really kind of went on lockdown, so that garden had a couple of improvements, but it not to the point where it can grow food yet. But it's already started again this year, and plans are to have it ready this growing season. And then we also gave out one neighborhood challenge grant for the New Auburn Village signs that have been put up, I think, last summer.
Zach, I have a quick question. For
Yeah.
the neighborhood challenge grants, how many applications do you typically see every year?
Just a couple typically. I think, we could do a better job marketing it. It's difficult. Again, it's limited to low to moderate income areas because that's where the benefits have to go. And it usually takes like a neighborhood organization to apply for that. So New Auburn, has an active neighborhood organization, and they've gotten a couple of these grants. There's been one other, I believe.
West Auburn.
Yeah, that got one as well. So we had budgeted $15,000 for the year and ended up doing one project for that.
Thank you.
One of the other goals, make neighborhoods safe and walkable. We did the Chestnut Street raised crosswalk that goes from the PAL Center to the gully and the basketball courts there to slow traffic down. I think originally that was planned that possibly shutting down Chestnut Street, and that plan evolved into the raised crosswalk, and improve parking at the PAL Center to get kind of the cars out of pedestrians' ways and make it better for that neighborhood, moving in between the PAL Center and those rec areas across the street. The other activity we funded was the Library Avenue. I say it's Library Ave, but it's the whole area, the neighborhood road design. That design incorporates Library Avenue, Troy Street, and Spring Street from Hampshire to Troy Street, and Pleasant Street, the little section of Pleasant Street that goes up kind of behind the Auburn Novelties shop. So it would add on-street parking, improved crosswalks. It's kind of, it has the complete streets design for those. In order to actually record an accomplishment for the low mod, we will have to, pavement will have to be laid on that. So it kind of will keep carrying forward until we can record some of those goals. And so hopefully sometime soon we'll be looking to, in the next few budgets for the year, be funding some of those sections of street, most likely in phases. For economic development, the goal was promote jobs and development. We gave out one economic development loan that year. It was the Main Street Music Shop, and they got a $25,000 forgivable loan. He had just purchased the building and had found some defects for it, and I think we helped him out with some heating and cooling, like a heat pump as well. So a really nice addition for that neighborhood. Our public service grants are a big part of, getting assistance out to our residents. We've funded in various amounts, Safe Voices, the Work With Me program that's out of the Auburn Police Department. We fund the summer camp scholarships for low to moderate income families with the Auburn Rec. We give a grant to Tedford Housing. They help families with homelessness. The Promise Early Education Center, again, I think they help help with daycare costs. Literacy volunteers, Andrew Scoggin, they do a lot of work with the immigrant population, helping them learn to read and write English, and getting them integrated into our community. And St. Mary's Nutrition Center they get a grant for running the community gardens. The last goal of the consolidated plan and action plan for that year, we had made an amendment for the senior center. The program was in trouble of when I took over, kind of not spending enough money. This was one of our, an amendment we made to the action plan to fund this, the Auburn Senior Community Center. And I think everybody here is familiar with that center. And I gotta say, I didn't envision as much it getting used like it does, and it's really quite the asset. It's more than we even imagined it would be.
Mr. Leonard?
Yeah.
In terms of this, I'm looking at the activities, which are great. How were these affected by COVID, and how did you continue to support them?
So we don't, those are programs the rec runs. We are not funding those. We funded the facility. This was an example, but we did have to report accomplishments to HUD, and so we did use the numbers of what rec is running for programs in there for this facility has helped these people. So I'm not involved in the administrating those programs, so I can't really speak to that.
Zach, I would just add that, so what took place during COVID was the age-friendly group with the assistance from the rec department created opportunities for meals to go. because they could not come and use the facility. That's still continuing when necessary. And then other activities, I believe the rec just rolled out kits for seniors to be able to, for certain craft-like kits. So those efforts are still continuing, but maybe not necessarily, I think you'll see in here, I think it was talking about rec crafting was part of this 4 times a month. So to try to meet that goal, it's pick up a kit and take it home with you and provide that. We did get notification today that the Auburn Senior Community Center won an award for the work that's being done, and they were selected to receive the 2021 Facilities Merit Award from the Maine Parks and Recreation Association because of the work that's being done there, and especially during this time to be able to still make those accomplishments. So teams like the Age-Friendly Group really is the backbone to assisting the rec department and making those things happen.
We're also bringing back the movies. We're going to have movies twice a month, Wednesdays, 1st and 3rd. We've been allowed to do that, 30 people.
That's good.
Yeah, so, that was a pretty hefty price tag. I know when we brought it in front of the council, it was a big ask, but it's been an overwhelming success, I believe, as far as our program goes, and I think it was, it's a valuable asset to the community.
Best slide of the night.
Black screen I'm done. Does anyone have any other questions?
Any questions for Zach? No, there's something I want to talk about.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I had a
Go.
question. You mentioned that 529 families were served on that first slide. How does that compare, and I know we're going back here, but how does that compare to the previous caper?
The previous, I don't have the previous caper in front of me. I could tell this was difficult. So this consolidated plan, which was the 5-year consolidated plan, this was the last year of the 2015 to 2019 consolidated plan. That plan was developed by, I think, kind of 2 managers ago and experienced multiple amendments. So it's hard to compare years to years. There's also, things that the first year may have started in one year and get reported in the other. It's because of all the mix-ups and things where, we're really kind of moving to organize that a lot better so we can provide those numbers moving forward. It's just difficult at this time with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, Zach. We appreciate your work on this. We look forward to updates post-COVID and more people being helped.
Great, thank you.
Council communications. Start off my left. Any councilor have a communication they want to share with the public or the council? Nothing tonight? Okay, very good.
Council Walker.
You have communications or report?
A little of both.
Okay.
I just want to talk about the Valentine giveaway for the lunch that we gave out, the spaghetti dinners, and I just want to say thank you to everybody that was involved, that helped to do it, and all the people that requested their lunches and stuff. We collected from the kind-hearted people $370. We also had John Morrison as a sponsor for $500. And I don't believe we spent $1 over that amount preparing this and getting everything ready. Everything went great. We were lucky we didn't have the kind of weather we had today, so we lucked out. But without this facility that we just saw on the screen, both ends here, we wouldn't be able to do that. And that's been an ongoing thing ever since last March or whenever this whole thing started, almost a year ago. That has been, the Recreation Department working with the PAL and everybody else that put their thing together, have fed thousands and thousands of people And only because we have this facility, and this facility is getting a little bit better all the time. We're getting things that we need. When we first built it, we had a dream of things we needed, but we didn't have the money to be able to do that. COVID actually has helped us to be able to buy some of this stuff. And it just makes it easier every time we do another luncheon or another dinner or whatever it is we put together, because things are being put in place because some money has come from the state to help us do this. So our budget, we wouldn't be able to do it all. So I want to just thank everybody that's involved in all of this. It's a great thing, and I think it's going to get greater and greater as we go forward.
Councilor Walker, can you please tell the council and the viewers how many people actually got a dinner on the Valentine's Day dinner?
Yeah, well, I sent out 275 dinners, and all of us volunteers, which was 12 of us, all got a dinner also to go home. So we had, 285 dinners that went out of the building. So we'll leave it like that. And that was all done in about a 2 hour and 15-minute time to get this all out to the people. And I've had a lot of people that have called and said, thank you again for helping us, being there to give us what, something to take home and be able to reheat, because it was cold out and things cool down, especially spaghetti. But most people were very, very happy. I got no complaints, but, who knows, maybe there is one out there, but.
Well, not from over here. Thank you, Councilor Walker, and all the volunteers that helped make that happen. It's huge community building. Aren't you glad we got carpet put in that building? I remember an interesting conversation between you and I on that one.
I've also got another idea for a part of the flooring down there.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Now, that's it for communications. Let's go into open session. Is there, first open session of the night, members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on tonight's agenda. Members that would like to speak may do so by stepping up to the podium. I don't think there's anyone in there tonight, correct? Okay. I'll now close the first open session of the night. Okay, we're going to be moving on to unfinished business now. First is Ordinance 01-0201-2021, amending the zoning map, adjusting the boundary to remove the parcel at 186 Main Street from the T.4.2 form-based district and including the parcel in the T.5.1 form-based district. This is a public hearing and its second reading. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
To approve.
Second.
Motion for Councilor Walker, second for Councilor Carrier. Open this up to the public. If there's any members of the public that came into the community room, please step up to the podium. Nobody has come into the community room since. Bring it back to the council. Is there any debate on this? None being, I'll ask for a vote then. Sue, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Boss?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna?
Yes.
Counselor McLeod?
Yes.
Counselor Milks?
Yes.
Counselor Carrier?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
The order passes second reading by a vote of 7-0.
And I'd like to say thank you to this council for this, because we would have had a building there already if we'd had a council before that would have agreed with this.
Heary. Absolutely agreed. Next order, we have order number 14-0216-2021. It's adopting the Community Development Block Grants Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, the CAPER report, based upon the presentation we just received from Mr. Lenhart. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Councilor Gary, second from Councilor Walker. Are there did anybody in the public wants to speak on this? Nobody's come in. Just for you at home, we're watching for any traffic coming in the community room, as well as up on the screen here. Bring this back to the council at this point in time. Council, any debate on this? None being. Ask for a show of hands. All those in favor accepting? Passes 7-0. Thanks, Zach. Don't run out of here too quick. Next is Ordinance 03-021, 62021, amending Article 5, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Division 1, generally Section 2-381 of the Code of Ordinances. This is a public hearing and its first readings. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Councilor Gary, second.
Second.
Second, Councilor Carrier. I'll open this up to the public. Any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium. If you're in the community room, nobody is coming to the community room. Thank you. Bring us back to the council. Council, this is just in reference to the workshop that we had earlier on these points. Councilor Boss.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend the language in the the last sentence. Instead of, the council has created advisory boards to provide oversight and communication, I'd like to propose that we change that language to, the council has created advisory boards to facilitate communication.
Did you also have something about the ability? I'm sorry, did you say that? I'm just trying to pull it all up. Could you please repeat your amended change?
Thank you. It should be as read. The council has the ability to create advisory boards to facilitate communication.
Very good, thank
I'll
you.
second it.
I have a motion from Councilor Boss. Do I have a second? A second from Councilor Gary. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion, please raise your hand. 6. Okay, the motion as, the amendment to the motion passes 6-0. Okay, bring this back up. We have an amended motion on the floor. Any other amendments? Any other discussion? None being, I'm going to ask for a vote at this time. That'll be a roll call vote. Sue?
Counselor Boss?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna?
Yes.
Counselor McLeod?
Yes.
Counselor Milks?
Yes.
Counselor Carrier?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Order passes first reading by a vote of 7-0. Next is Ordinance 04-0216-2021, amending Article 5, Boards and Commissions and Committees, Division 2 generally, Section 2-430 of the Code of Ordinances. This is a public hearing and the first reading again. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion, Councilor Carrier, second from Councilor Walker. Open this up to the public. Are any members of the public who would like to speak on this order? None being, nobody has come in. Bring it back to the council. Council, any discussion? Okay. Sue, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Boss?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna?
Yes.
Counselor McLeod?
Yes.
Counselor Milks?
Yes.
Counselor Carrier?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Order passes first reading, 7-0. Next is Ordinance 05-0216-2021, amending Article 5, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Division 2 generally, Section 2-431 of the Code of Ordinances. It's a public hearing and a first reading. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Councilor Walker, second from Councilor McLeod. Open this up to the public. Are any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please use the podium in the community room. We will bring it now back to council as no one's in the community room. Council, debate, discussion? None being. Madam Clerk?
Counselor Boss?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna?
Yes.
Counselor McLeod?
Yes.
Counselor Milks?
Yes.
Counselor Carrier?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Order passes first reading, 7-0. Next, Ordinance 06-0216-2021, amending Article 5, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Division 2 generally, Section 2-432 of the Code of Ordinances. It's a public hearing and first reading. I'll entertain a motion this time.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion, Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Carrier. I'll open this up to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium if you're in the community room. No one is. I'll bring it back down to the council. Council, any discussion, debate? None being. Madam Clerk?
Counselor Boss?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna?
Yes.
Counselor McLeod?
Yes.
Counselor Milks?
Yes.
Counselor Carrier?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Order passes first reading, 7-0. Next is ordinance 07-02-162021, amending Article 5, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Division 2, generally Section 2-433 of the Code of Ordinances. Excuse me, this is a public hearing and first reading, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Motion.
A motion from Councilor Walker and a second from Councilor Carrier. I'll open this up to as a public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium. Nobody is in the room. Seeing none, I'm going to bring it to council. Council, debate, discussion? Nothing? Madam Clerk?
Councilor Boss?
Yes.
Councilor Gary?
Yes.
Councilor Lasagna?
Yes.
Councilor McLeod?
Yes.
Councilor Milks?
Yes.
Councilor Carrier?
Yes.
Councilor Walker?
Yes.
Order passes 7-0. Next is ordinance 08-02-162021, amending Article 5, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Division 2, generally Section 2-434 of the Code of Ordinances. This is a public hearing and first reading. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to move.
A motion from Councilor Walker. Second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Lasagna. Open this up, public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium in the community room. No one is in the community room. Council, anything? Debate? Very good. Madam Clerk, the roll call vote.
Boss?
Yes.
Councilor Gary?
Yes.
Councilor Lasagna?
Yes.
Councilor McLeod?
Yes.
Councilor Milks?
Yes.
Councilor Carrier?
Yes.
Councilor Walker?
Yes.
Order passes first reading, vote is 7-0. Next is ordinance 09-02-162021, amending Article 5, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Division 2, generally Section 2-435 of the Code of Ordinances. This is a public hearing and first reading. I'll entertain a motion.
Move.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilor Walker there and Councilor Carrier on a second. I'm going to open this up to the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this topic? If so, please step up to the podium in the community room. No one is in the community room. I'll bring it back to the council. Council? Nothing? That's a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Councilor Boss?
Yes.
Councilor Gary?
Yes.
Councilor Lasagna?
Yes.
Councilor McLeod?
Yes.
Councilor Milks?
Yep.
Councilor Carrier?
Yes.
Councilor Walker?
Yes.
Order passes first reading, vote is 7-0. Next is ordinance 10-02-162021, amending Article 5, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Division 2, generally Section 2-440 of the Code of Ordinances. This is a public hearing and first reading. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
And move.
Second.
A motion from Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Carrier. Open this up to the public. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium in the community room. Nothing. Bring it back to the council. Council, any conversation, debate, discussion? None being, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to, we've gone through this process, what would be helpful for us to know is moving forward, you're going to have, say, Chapter 52. That probably has 30 sections that will be striking. If, Sue, correct me, if the council would like, if we have direction, we could put an entire chapter for moving forward, or an article, depending on what the change is. You'd see all the changes, but you wouldn't necessarily do each section. If the council is in favor of that, now that you've gone through this process of passing 10 of them.
So you say this now to me, huh?
We could do this differently moving forward.
Excellent timing.
Excellent. Great timing, Mr. Manager. Great time. So would it be like a consent agenda or just an order generally accepting the following changes?
I don't think we would do it as a consent item
No.
because it's a public hearing and
Okay.
a first reading. So,
So just kind of an all-in, okay. Council, as we're talking about this, agreed? I mean, unless y'all like watching me go, I think I'm doing an okay job, but, good.
If it's that huge, maybe you could do it in groups of a certain number. That way, if there's an issue, we can catch it, versus if you have 100 of them and just let them all go.
yeah, anything that's major changes, we'll make sure we break that out.
Okay.
The thing would be like, for Chapter 52, it's pretty much all strike-throughs, and I believe there's a lot of additions in that chapter. So as we bring them, depending on the way it look like, we'll try to make sure, Sue will navigate that for us to make sure that it's done, so that it's in good, clean compartments.
Very good. Madam Clerk? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Boss?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
Yes.
Counselor Lasagna?
Yes.
Counselor McLeod?
Yes.
Counselor Milks?
Yes.
Counselor Carrier?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Order passes by a vote of 7-0. Next, we have Order 15-0216-2021, approving the formation of an ad hoc committee to evaluate and recommend changes to the city ordinance as it pertains to permitting and fees. Just to clarify, this is a city council ad hoc group, not a mayoral ad hoc formation. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Motion to approve.
Motion, Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Milks. Open up to the public. Any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium if you're in the community room. We are clear. Bringing this back to the council. Council, any further conversation or debate on this? Councilor Garrett, start over with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great idea, and the two counselors that have suggested it, I recommend that they be the chair of this group. I would like to also, if we could, put a limit on how many, at least a number of how many members are going to be on this. And I would like to also see somebody that's non-staff that works with these fees and stuff that they're going to go through, that work with it on a daily living, so that they know what's good, what's bad, what needs to be changed, or what needs to be taken away.
Any other comments? Okay. No other comments? I'd like to bring this up for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, point of information. When will we find out exactly how many they're going to have on their committee, since we didn't put that in there?
I mean, quite frank, the motion's been passed, but
Right.
there's never amendment to the order, or to the motion rather, stipulating those things from you.
Oh, sorry.
So, I mean, I would hopefully defer out to the professionalism of the two counselors that are on the committee to report that out. I think in the packet, there are some dates certain, i.e. May 17th, with the final
Right.
report in. But as the city manager said, there'll be 5 other reports.
See, this is what on some of our, yes, I could have made a motion, but I also wanted to try to make a point. A lot of times we got stuff on the agenda in our council packet, but it's missing the guts.
I'm sorry, Counselor, I mean, there was no motion to amend?
Oh, no, I'm not.
The motion's been seconded and voted on.
I didn't make a motion to adjourn because I was trying to make a point. There's lots of times when we pass these committees that we should do it in the past, in the next time when we do set up a committee, that more of the particulars are fleshed out in our packets before we get them.
Thank you, duly noted. This is the last open session. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. I think that's right. Yes, this is the last open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to this council about any issue directly related to city business which is not on this agenda. Is there anyone here? Nobody there. Okay, very good. I'll now close that second open session. Now we're going to move on to committee reports. Starting off with the mayor's report. I'd like just to report on, it's a dovetail really to the CDBG process. I've been in communication with staff, and this is a follow-up also to my State of the City address, talking about the power and the effectiveness of volunteer-led nonprofit organizations. And I really want the rest of the council to kind of add to this conversation. I've reached out to 7 volunteer-led nonprofit organizations within Auburn that have goals around helping access our youth, predominantly, actually all our youth, to different opportunities with regards to recreation, sports, competitiveness. We're going to be talking through them, and Mr. Holmes has been a great help so far. He's got a couple more he's going to talk with, but we're going to start looking at how we can help them create programs specifically designed to help those with disabilities, low to moderate incomes, start accessing different opportunities that aren't run or offered by the city through our normal recreational program. That way we're supporting these nonprofit groups and these citizen-driven groups, I should say. I'd encourage everybody to hunt. And I have to tell you, once I started asking around and working the phones and the emails, I was shocked at what we already have out there and what's been out there that nobody knows about that could do a lot of good with $500, $700. So it's pretty amazing. So please ask around, look in your wards, look around the city. I think the focus is those volunteer driven community nonprofits. So that's all I have for reports. Start over here on the left. I start with community. Yeah, left. Councilor Boss, please go.
Thank you. Just a short update. The Auburn Public Library is now offering by appointment in library browsing, and you can attend as a full family. So it's, I believe, half an hour appointments throughout the day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So call ahead, schedule a time. You can go in and browse and look for books. They're still also doing curbside pickup, and again, you just call the library, place your book order, and then you just pick it up right outside the door. And they've been doing a great job with that service. Thank you.
Councilor McLeod is going to update on the school committee.
Councilor McLeod.
I'm getting just as long as Councilor Carrier now. LATC met recently. We worked on the RFP for the next 3-year service agreement. Great Falls TV met. Not much to report out except that our channels are back down where they're supposed to be, and they are looking to potentially start billing us for the services that they already provide us, our drops and our feeds into the cable system. So we're looking into that. The Edward Little Building Committee, everything went out to bid. They just got an email today saying that per the DOE and Harriman, they're extending it 1 more week to allow subcontractors to get their bids fully in. And they should be opened publicly on March 2nd at 2 p.m. Hit all the school stuff? Is that all the big ones? All right. And then just to kind of piggyback on what the mayor was saying for our comp plan, our subcommittee is meeting every week, and we're currently digging into zoning and how that looks. And we're making a lot of progress on that. So as he said, that should be coming up to you for some review and some eyes in the next couple weeks.
Mr. Mayor, you said that you would forward the information.
Done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I got it out to both Councilor McLeod and Dana Staples, so it's in their inbox.
That's it.
Councilor Gary?
Nothing at this time.
Councilor Knox?
The sewer meeting today, Mr. Goyette, Sid, and a third person met with Lewiston regarding that retaining tank for the sewer department that's going to be going in. That's going to be coming in front of us. They're trying to determine apportionment on that. We don't have exact numbers on that yet, but they're talking about, Mr. Goyette was involved with that, determining apportionment by dry use versus flood use, and how to determine the overflow that's needed for that. So more information will be coming on that. The water department, the water trustees responded to a PUC complaint, ratepayer complaint, and the gist of it is we'd like to have the PUC encourage Lewiston, the Lewiston Water Department, to come to the table to renegotiate a number of the agreements that they've been unwilling at this point. The city council in Lewiston has said we're not interested. So we responded that we would like them to, the PUC, to encourage them to come to the table. And we're considering our options should they decide not to. So that's what we got going on in those two departments.
If I could just clarifying question on that. Ratepayers, so the ratepayers from the city of Auburn, people who get a Auburn Water Department bill.
Correct.
Filed a Public Utilities Commission complaint
That's correct.
stating that the apportionment of
Correct.
the water cost between Lewiston and Auburn was not fair.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. That number of our agreements between the two cities are based on a 50-50 split. However, Auburn uses 34% of the water and Lewiston uses 66, or it's the other way around. It's either 34 and 36, 66 or 64 and 36. So there's a number of interlocal agreements that are complicated, would be the nicest way to put it, that, and are sort of have wording, and we're reviewing all of these, and we're going to be evaluating, engaging more aggressive, more comprehensively with legal counsel on digging into these agreements to find out what our recourse is. And we're just in the process of doing that now. We haven't gotten to the point where we've determined what we can and can't do, because there's some of them are over 20 years old that, you know, memorandums of understanding that there's wordings in there that this should be updated, amended in a year or two from now, and nothing was ever done, and so.
Okay.
We don't know the answers to what we're allowed to do yet.
I think that probably deserves a little bit more time as your situation add some clarity to it. So let's look at for that maybe in a future workshop if applicable.
Yeah,
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Councilor Milks, is this just around the water authority, or are you talking, who will be looking at the range of all of the interlocal agreements?
So there's a number of interlocal agreements that result about that some of them are very clear.
But this is just water, though, to be clear.
Just water, not
Just
sewer.
water,
That
not-
was, thank you, that's what
Oh,
I
I'm
needed.
sorry, yeah,
Yep.
just water, just water, yep.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Councilor Walker?
Yeah, I have a couple things. One, I would like to request that you put us on the next council meeting at the workshop, the age-friendly, so we can give a report to the full council. We'd like to get on there for 20 minutes if it's possible. The second thing is, Tiz Crowley reached out to myself, hoping that we would participate in the March 30th Walk in the Park. I told her that I would do everything that I could possibly do to put together a walk in the park, starting from our beautiful park across the street to Bonnie Park, the art wall, down to the beautiful park we have in New Auburn. I reached out to Alan Manoyan, and Alan will be the person that works with us to make sure that we can have someone to speak about each section, and with plenty of knowledge, so that the great people of Auburn will get to understand what these parks are and why and how they got there. So I reached out to Alan because he has done this in the past. He knows as much information, and he will reach out to Eric Cousins and Sabrina as we get closer to March 30th. That time, just so we know at this point, we are going to do it from 12 to 2:30, hoping that it's going to be warm on that day, not cold, not windy, not raining, not snowing, not whatever. My last thing is, the United New Auburn Association will have a meeting next Tuesday night at 6 at Rolly's Diner, and we will be discussing, again, the March Walk in the Park, trying to get more information out, and hopefully we get a lot of our seniors that can come out and walk that evening and enjoy it. I think it's, unless we continue to snow every other day, but I think it'll be a great thing, and everyone is welcome. It's not just seniors, everybody in the city, across the city. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Carey?
There's no update yet from the airport board. We have not had a meeting due to some medical issues. The school committee, an update on the new buildings, the two portables that we have at East Auburn and Washburn. Both the buildings are in. All issues have been settled with the equipment that was in them and the way the heaters were done. They're set up with water, and they're ready to move into 4 classrooms, for 2 each for both of those. The construction project at AMS is completed. The only thing missing at this point is we found out that they're going to have the tinting on the window because there's a lot more light coming into the area than there was before. So that one is completed. The Franklin bids have come back. Thankfully, those bids have come in closer to what we were originally cast. So we're a little bit happier about that and what it might mean for the ELHS bids that we have out currently. There have been some savings. The staffing positions that we currently have that are unfilled are giving us some savings, and there are continued savings coming out of the special education department. So we're happy to see those, and it'll be a benefit to the school committee, given that, reminding you that 85% of our budget is staff, and the raises and stuff that we're giving out this year could have an effect on our staffing. We reviewed the CIP items that we're going to be looking at coming into the budget, looking at what we can do with the CIP budget. The decisions will be made upcoming finance meetings. And the ELHS buildings, as Councilman McLeod mentioned, they're going to be reviewing I like to refer to it as the wish list. But we'll remind the council that of the $3 to $5 million that was supposed to have been raised by the school committee, there's only $56,000 in the fund, and at this point, we're sort of dead in the water in trying to do this. We've been told that there's some rules stipulating what we can actually do as far as raising money and having people raise money for us. We need to go back and review those, but currently there's no money of the 3 to 5 that we had originally been told about. So when it comes to time to review the list, you need to keep that in mind, that there's none of the 3 to 5.
If you don't mind, the correction is we were promised. We weren't just told. We were promised they would raise that money.
Councilor Carrier?
Yes.
I'm wondering when the Health and Safety Reentry Steering Committee, do they present to you on a regular basis? I know that Michelle is there, but does the whole committee ever present to you?
No, it's just been Michelle that's presented to us. We were presented a plan. It's actually been an ongoing request by the committee that we move forward towards more in-person learning. And it's been going back and forth with use of material that was purchased by the school committee versus in-person learning, and there's been back and forth. We are moving forward currently with adding a Wednesday every other week to the learning facility, or to the learning plan. And there'll be a topic of discussion, I can guarantee you, come Wednesday night.
I'm just curious about the role that this Health and Safety Reentry Steering Committee, because they represent administrators, health people, parents.
No, they represent the administration. There are members from the parents that are on there. There will be a board member on there coming up. But basically what they do is they're supposed to be reviewing information that's given to us by Matt Fifield, the Assistant Chief, in regards to information in regards to infection rates and things like that, plus reviewing information that they're given from the state DOE. But that, as I said, will be a topic of a large discussion come Wednesday night.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few items to cover. One, as you know, well over a year ago, we entered into a solar energy project for the city. If you've been watching the news, you saw some of the reports that came out regarding CMP's costs to move on some of those projects. Our attorney that we have representing us has formed a letter that we will sign on to, that basically it's to promote solar energy projects and distributed generation resources in Maine. Much of this is related to what they're currently facing with uncertainty of additional delays and additional unplanned costs. If the original projection that came from CMP on what the cost would be for us to connect, Auburn would lose about $4,000 a year. based on those new costs. So CMP's late discovery of these technical challenges is certainly impacting local municipalities. I'm sure the school is faced with the same thing. School signed on to a solar energy project that was part of what schools could sign on, which made sense for Auburn School District to do that. I'm sure they'll also have an impact. So we will sign on to this and send it to our delegates to bring this up. I know so there's some revisions that have happened through CMP. I've heard some of those have been reduced, but there's still a concern there of what this impact and delay would be. Next is, as you know, our tax office is currently closed. We did have several members of our staff test positive for COVID. Within the tax office, we probably had several more employees test, all came up negative. However, because of some that were in close proximity, there are still some staff that are being quarantined, which makes it impossible for us to open the tax office at this time. So we will continue with a closed status as soon as we have a staff member that's cleared through Matt Fifield, who works with CDC directly on when a staff member can be cleared. We will, and we have the appropriate staffing level, we'll open the tax office back up. We do have staff that's answering phones that are being transferred to them, and they're also responding to emails and helping individuals that need to get certain requirements done. The clerk's office, which was originally closed, is back up. They're fully staffed, so that side of the building is still operational. Vaccine site, as you know, there's been a lot of discussions regarding a Lewis and Auburn vaccine site. There is still conversations that's taking place. There will be hopefully an agreement that will be signed soon on a location. Once that agreement's been signed and that determination's been made, that'll be able to become public. We'll be pushing that out hopefully soon. The site will be very accessible for our residents, but it's also accessible for the region. This isn't just an Auburn or a Lewiston vaccination site. This will be a regional site. So we want to make sure it's something that's accessible for many in the area to be able to access. So that is underway. There's several meetings that are being taken place regarding that. There were some follow-up meetings regarding transportation. How do we provide good transportation for seniors and others who might be looking to access the site? And we're working with Pro-America, which is the organization that's contracted with the state of Maine for the logistics of this. So those meetings are underway and taking place. So probably, just as a target, probably mid-March before you see this vaccination site stand up, which would most likely be alignment with also the amount of accessible dosage of the vaccine coming into the state of Maine. So more to come on that, but that's just something for you to keep in mind. We are working as follow-up on a workshop that we had regarding permitting in the community, in the city of Auburn rather. I'm very pleased about the ad hoc committee. I think we'll be able to really dig into some of those efforts. A piece that we're working as staff to work on with our software providers is standing up the online permitting platform. So we hope to have that out and running in the next few weeks. That means the forms will all be available online. You can take care of it right there, be able to submit them, be a lot more clearer in the forms. That's the piece that we understood too, is some of these forms need to be more clear. So we are working on that. We hope to have that up and running soon. The grant update that I've been mentioning will be at our next meeting on March 1st. That's the update on all of the COVID funding that we've received, the election grant, and the work that's currently being done with FEMA. We pushed FEMA off because we had all these other deadlines for these other grants. FEMA did not have a hard deadline. They were extended theirs, so we knew we had time on that. We now currently have a FEMA representative that's assigned to the city of Auburn that's working through our application. We'll be submitting our first round of reimbursement in the next few weeks. It'll be reimbursements for the fire department. We're breaking it out by departments. The fire department's done a very good job of documenting their work as it pertains to COVID and and they probably have the most significant amount of costs. So Chief Chase and his team have been working on that with our grant manager, Rita Beaudry. So I look forward to being able to provide you more information on that on March 1st as well. So we are moving forward on that, and you'll be able to get a good update on everything that we've done with that grant funding. Just an update on the agenda. As I mentioned, March 1st, we will do the grant update, but we'll also, we'll probably be moving some items that we had, and I'll send out an update this week of the agenda of upcoming workshops. But the thing that probably to stand out for you would be the March 15th meeting. That is still on schedule for a joint meeting with the school department. We'll be reviewing CIP, the joint CIP plan for the city, and the school department, as well as the budget presentation, or budget discussion, I should say, for the school department. And we'll be introducing our preliminary budget for the city on that date as well. So very busy meeting, a lot of items that'll be on that date, March 15th. But we will, we'll make sure we'll try to, as I get materials, I'll push them out to you ahead of time so you'll have a chance to be able to review those prior to the meetings. I believe that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Beware the Ides of March. Great. Good timing on that meeting, huh? So that's city manager's report. Next, we have finance report. Jill's not here tonight, but I'm gonna entertain a motion to accept. If there's any questions, we can't table this to a date certain. Our next meeting when she'll be here. So I'll entertain a motion to accept and place on file the January 2021 final monthly finance report.
So moved.
Motion from Councilor Carey, second from Councilor McLeod. Are there any questions? Is there any motion to table this to a date certain, or do you all feel comfortable with accepting this?
I'm comfortable.
Hearing no motion to table, ask for a vote of show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? None named. Finance report's accepted by a vote of 7-0. I would encourage all of the people at home to look at that, and especially take note of the profitability, amazing profitability, considering all things, for Norway Savings Bank Arena. So it's significant. Okay, very good. Next on the agenda, we have an executive session. And this will be the last thing on tonight's, we have one executive session, excuse me. Yes, one. This will be the last thing on tonight's agenda. There'll be nothing else further actionable. So we have an executive session. Not contract negotiations, is it?
Economic development.
Economic development.
She was doing great. Super there.
We removed one.
Oh, okay. There we go. Next, we have an executive session, economic development pursuant to 1 MRSA, section 405-6C. Do I have a motion? Motion for Councilor Milks. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Councilor Walker. All those in favor of entering into executive session, please raise your hand. We are now in executive session by vote of 7-0. Have a great night, folks. Except for you stuck with me.